Well, hello everyone. So this is going to be a very interesting themed month because I'm going to spend this month reviewing parts of fruit that you normally would not eat. These are things that people discard, even though some people around the world do eat it. And I think this one is a good one to start with because even people who really know a lot about it don't realize that you can eat just about every part of it, the cacao. Now, cacao is something that I've reviewed in the past, a long time ago. In Malaysia, I reviewed this. I reviewed the fruit on it. I also reviewed the seeds and compared them to other related relatives of the cacao. But today I'm going to tell you exactly how every part of this can be eaten. You can eat the seeds, which are turned into chocolate. People take the seeds, they ferment them, they dry them, they roast them, they grind them, they separate them out, they put them back together, they temper them, and then you get chocolate. You can eat the husk that is around the seeds of the chocolate. Now, usually that is discarded in chocolate making, but you can actually eat it. You can eat the fruit that is around those seeds, so the fleshy part around that, and that's one thing I've reviewed in the past. I'm going to do it again. And finally, yes, you can eat the pod. You can eat this thing. People don't usually eat it, but it has been done. It won't kill you. You can eat it, and I'm going to show you how. So first, let's cut this thing open. Alright, so we got the cacao, we've got a cutting board, and we have an unnecessarily large cleaver. I'm going to just split this down the center like so. You don't want to go like all the way through it because then you might damage those seeds on the inside. Just lopped off the end of that to kind of give an idea of how deeply I'm cutting. You can see that I'm getting in there about a ½ an inch. And by the way, this was sent to me by miamifruit.org, so thank you so much, Miami Fruit, for sending this to me. If you want to buy cacao pods fresh like this, you can. There is a link in the description below, along with a promo code. Okay, so now let's pop this guy open. That looks really good. This looks a lot better than the last one that I had. The one that I had in Malaysia was like super dried out. This one is nice and fleshy. The pod on this is a little bit thin. It's not super fleshy on the pod, so maybe not the best specimen to be eating. But the fruit on the inside does look really good. Okay, so first let's just try the fruit on its own. To do that, you take one of these and you just suck on it. And it is good, but there isn't a lot of flesh there, just a little bit. You're mostly getting a big seed in there. It's like a little bit sour, but not much. Maybe like a 4 out of 10 on sourness. It's a little bit sweet, but not much. Maybe a 3 out of 10 on sweetness. So think like a lychee flavor with a little hint of pineapple or mango to it. Something like that, but like very minute. You're mostly just getting like a little touch of tartness and sweetness. It reminds me a little bit of mangosteen as well, especially since the texture on it is a little bit like a mangosteen, but a little slimier. It does not in any way taste like chocolate. Some varieties of this just don't have a lot of flesh on it, or you might get it a little bit too early or a little too late because it's not being picked for the flesh, it's being picked for the seeds. When you let it fully mature where you can eat the fruit, it's actually really tasty. So if you take a moment to look at this seed here, you can see that takes up the majority of the fruit here. The fruit is like firmly attached to it, so you're just kind of like sucking the flesh off that seed. You could eat it just like this. You can eat it roasted. Some people are a really big fan of raw cacao, and you can buy raw cacao beans online, but when you get raw cacao, it's fermented and dried. And some people make the argument that raw cacao beans that you buy in a bag are not actually raw because they get heated up partially by fermentation. I am not a raw foodist, so I'm not going to go down that route. But one thing is for sure, this is 100% raw. This is not prepared in any way. So if you want to try raw cacao beans like this, you definitely need to open it up yourself. If you go online, it's going to have a much different flavor than this. If you want to see what it tastes like to try the raw cacao when it's dried out, there is a link to a video where I did that below. But let me show you what it tastes like when it has not been through the fermentation process and has not been dried out or anything. Tastes pretty good. Some people don't like it. They say it's too bitter to eat, and they prefer to have it fermented and dried. I think it's fine. It's a bit strong. It tastes like the bitterness you get from a very, very dark chocolate. And this is what it looks like on the inside. It is dark brown and chocolatey looking. So if you were to like scrape off all the flesh off this thing, it does actually look like chocolate in there, and it does taste chocolatey. I don't think there's any harm in eating like a few of these, but I have heard people say that it's not a good idea to eat like a whole bunch of cacao because it does have a lot of caffeine in it. It does have theobromine in it. There is such a thing as theobromine poisoning if you have too much of it. If that is something that appeals to you to eat this whole thing in one sitting, you might want to look it up, but yeah, eating a few is fine. To eat like it raw, I don't know. There's not really a whole lot of information on eating it in large quantities. So if you take a look at the seed here, you've got the dark center, but you also have this little skin that is around it. So you've got the flesh, you've got the skin, and then you have the seed on the inside. This is usually removed during processing if you're making chocolate and chucked. It's thrown out. However, you can eat it. In some parts of the world, it is saved and eaten as a tea, which I am going to do right now. So to make cacao tea, you can take the cacao fruits, remove the fruit from the seeds, dry them out, then remove the shells, and then brew the tea, or you can just like buy a bag of it. This is something you can buy online. It wasn't that expensive. You can get it off like Amazon or some health food stores might have it. The suggestion is 2 teaspoons per cup. And what's cool about this is that this is caffeine free. In the past, I made a coffee alternative called Cacao Brew, and that one uses the whole cacao nib, and that actually has caffeine and theobromine in it. This one, caffeine free. And put it on the cap, and this is going to sit for about 5 minutes. It's got a light color. It looks more like a tea than, you know, like coffee or hot chocolate. It smells chocolatey, as you would imagine, but not exactly what I would expect. It's not like hot chocolate in smell. It's like, it's got like a little bit of I don't know, maybe like a dry grass kind of smell to it. I like it. It's somewhere between hot chocolate and an herbal tea. It has the chocolatey flavor that you would expect, but it also has this kind of, yeah, I want to say like a dry grass, or like maybe like an herbal sort of flavor to it. It's not negative. It's just it's different. It definitely has more to it than straight up chocolate. I see it recommended to add milk and sugar to this, so I'm going to do that. All right.
It's like hot chocolate, but with less depth to it. It doesn't have like the same sort of richness or robustness that a hot chocolate would have. These are not roasted, I don't believe, so because of that, you're not getting that roasty flavor that a hot chocolate would have. If I didn't add milk and sugar to this, I could probably drink like several cups of that chocolate tea and not feel like full or anything. It's got a very light taste to it. I think I like hot chocolate better than this, and I think I like the Cacao Brew chocolate coffee better than this. However, this is still really good. If you're looking for like something chocolatey, but you don't want anything that's gonna kind of like weigh you down, this would be a good way to go.
But now let's get to what we've all been waiting for, how to eat the pod. And by the way, this isn't just me making things up. I read this on a website, Dandelion Chocolate. They wrote a blog entry about trying this, and where they got the idea was from a book written by Mercedes Mendoza, who is a Peruvian woman who has been trying to promote the use of the entire cacao fruit, including the pod. So she has a book out on how to do this. I'll put some information about that below as well. Alright, so first you take your pod and you chuck out all the flesh and seeds from it. So what you gotta do now is peel this with a vegetable peeler. So yeah, I guess when I say you can use the whole damn thing, there is a little bit that is not getting used, but what you can do is take the shreds of this and give it to your kids as a toy. Here's like the outside of the pod with the skin removed, and in here there's like this kind of like soft bit, and the site I'm looking at says that you should actually remove this, but that is a big pain to do, so you might as well just leave it on. Julian, your cacao pod, because you should be fancy. So I'm trying a frying recipe because that seems to be, you know, a way to make anything taste edible. It's frying. So it looks a little like French fries, smells a little like them, but I can guarantee it's not going to taste as good as a French fry. This isn't gonna be very good. I could already tell. It just doesn't fry up the way edible things fry up, you know? It fries up like you'd fry up a piece of bark. It darkened very quickly, so I had to like lower the heat pretty low. It's dark on the outside, although it looks like it's burnt. I don't think it's really burnt. It just kind of like had like a weird effect on it. No. It's like chewing on a piece of plastic covered in slime. It's like pretty much flavorless. It's more like the texture that you're getting. And that texture isn't good. So that's saying something. There's like remotely like a bit of like a squash kind of flavor. Like a roasted squash. It's not really, it's not tart or sweet or sour or bitter or anything. It's just like, bleh. Like if you're starving on a desert island and there is a cacao tree, don't throw out those pods because you're dying. You should collect them and you should fry them and eat them. I don't know how you have, you know, vegetable oil, you know, on your island, but if you've got it, then yeah, fry it and eat it. I think probably the better way to do it would be to boil it, which I wasn't planning on doing, but I feel like I need to redeem this episode. So let's boil it too. Alright, in here I've got some water boiling. On this cleaver I have some of my cacao pod chunks. So I'm just going to chuck those in there. Alright, so I'm going to let that cook for about 20 minutes and then check on it. So yeah, here we go. It took about 30 minutes for this to cook all the way through, and now it's nice and soft, succulent, waterlogged, if you will, and eating it on its own, probably not what people should be doing. It is, however, used as a base in a lot of different recipes, and what usually is done with it is it's pureed and then mixed into things. So I don't think it's really intended to put a whole lot of flavor into things, but to act as like a thickener, because this has a lot of pectin in it. Even if you look at the water here, it's like kind of like a thick water. So I think if you were to leave this pot just like out overnight, it would turn into a big like jelly cube. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time making anything with this, but I will show what this does add as far as adding flavor to a dish. So let's try it. Oh. I had to spit that out. It's really gross. The texture on it is like a really, really slimy, soggy potato wrapped in hard plastic. It's got like little hard plasticky bits in there, which maybe you can remove that before you cook it. But that texture is just like unpleasantly slimy and soft, like putting wet toilet paper in your mouth. It's just like something really nasty about it. The flavor on it is, I guess, like a little bit like a really, really bland potato, but also it has a slight vegetal kind of flavor to it, like maybe like a green bean. This is maybe a useful thing if you want to make jam, or if you want to thicken a soup or something. I think that is probably the best way of using it, but I wouldn't use it in anything mild because that flavor is not very good. This is something to be utilized as like a cooking tool, the way you would use like cornstarch or something. You wouldn't want to eat a big spoonful of cornstarch, but you would use it to thicken things. I'd say that this is probably about the same. You can use it, add it to a jam or like a soup or something, but yeah, eating it on its own, kind of nasty. But that is it, and it is impressive to say that like this is where we started with this pod. A lot of fruit, very heavy fruit, and this is where we ended up. We were able to use almost all of it. The seeds, the fruit, the shell around the seeds, and yes, even the pod. It is all something that you can use. You don't need to throw away like 90% of the fruit as people usually do. There is a whole lot there that can be used. So I think that's about it. I will see you next time with another fruit that you can eat a lot of parts of that maybe you shouldn't, but you can. So see you then. Bye-bye. I want to give a special shout out to AltPod and Smarter Every Day. They are mega patrons over on patreon.com. Patreon is how this channel happens. It's how I can afford to do all the things that I do. So if you want to help me out by supporting the channel and getting some bonuses along the way, check out the description. I also have these shirts for sale. Those are in the description as well. See you next time. Bye.